never do more than 8 reps is something that's popular on the internet recently, and I've been asked to make a video on this one quite a bit, so here we are. So in this video, we're going to talk about high reps versus low reps, as well as expose what is probably really going on here. So this is basically the idea that anything beyond a certain number of reps, sometimes 5 or 6 or 8, is just junk volume, it's a waste of time, or even counterproductive or dangerous or excessively fatiguing. And a lot of this is based on the effective reps model that states that the last 5 reps in a set are the effective ones. And before that, it kind of just doesn't do anything. Now, like all models, this model is wrong, but I think it is potentially useful. However, it does have some holes in it, and I could shoot holes in this all damn day. Is this the same for a beginner or an intermediate or advanced lifter? We know beginners grow from cardio. Clearly not within 5 reps of failure when you're walking on an incline treadmill or something. What about different exercises? If you're doing a squat, are your quads and your adductors and your glutes all being tapped into equally with different techniques within the same 5 reps from failure? No, I mean, studies have shown that the quads tap out a little bit earlier, and then the hip extensors kind of come into play a little bit later. So is that 5 effective reps for the quads and 3.5 for the glutes? I think people take a model and they take it way too seriously.
Everywhere, like such as, and
it's just a very loose idea. It's a conception. What about that study where people in anabolics grew more than people actually lifting? Were there effective reps like them walking to the bathroom or getting up off the couch in the morning? So if you pump someone full of hormones, yeah, they're going to grow even many reps away from failure. And we see this with some enhanced lifters where their training is very far from failure and they are still making progress. And if you're a natural lifter, you couldn't copy that. So are there effective reps that range just a lot further? It breaks down on so many different levels. What about different tempos? What about your levels of aggression? What about your levels of focus? What about your different techniques? It's probably going to be individual to a certain extent as well. So
fuck your house miles, bitch.
There's a lot of variables. It's not just the last 5 reps, so only do sets of 5. That doesn't even make sense. I also think there might be a little bit of a confirmation bias going on here, where someone likes low reps, they promote low reps, and then a lot of their audience is like, yeah, low reps are the best. And you get in this little bubble where the dissenting opinions just aren't really heard, or sometimes they're even blocked in a lot of cases. We'll get to that a little bit later. And so you start to develop this worldview where, oh, I'm always right, because you only hear the voices that are agreeing with you. And as a content creator, that is dangerous, because you think you're always right, even if you're very much not. All right, so let's get into the case for low reps. So low reps, I'm going to define the same way Basement Bodybuilding did. I'm going to link his video in the description. Anything under 8 reps. So under 8 reps, low, over 8 reps, high. I know it's a very sharp dividing line. There's a lot of nuance here, but that's just for the purposes of this discussion, because 8 reps is often thrown out as like never go above that. So first, a benefit would be overall less soreness. Now, I agree with this. I think that if you take a whole bunch of beginners and you have some do sets of 5, 6, 7, and others do sets of like 12 to 15, overall, you're going to see more soreness in that second group. However, that's just the first week. So often these studies will just say, okay, let's test, let's mess these guys up with a bunch of sets at different rep ranges.
do you want to punish me right now?
Yes, I want to punish you right now.
Punish me. Show me how bad it can be. I want you to show me the worst.
And yeah, the high rep ranges are going to have probably more muscle damage, probably more soreness. However, what about at 3 weeks and 5 weeks and 6 weeks and 8 weeks and 10 weeks? Due to the repeated bout effect, often this just is not a factor in the more moderate term. It doesn't have to be the long term. And so I think this is much less of a factor than a lot of people take it into consideration. However, if I was training a distance runner who had to run on legs, typically what we run on, good job, I would probably have them stick to under 8 reps, because I don't really need to do anything more than that. They're already getting those adaptations. Next, they're often touted as being more time efficient. So why do all those reps in the beginning? You're just wasting your time. Well, how long is a set of 15 gonna take, really? Probably less than a minute. So what is that wasting? 30 seconds of your life? What is that? It's a tiny little fraction of your day. So I think this is really just not a very good argument. Another one I've heard is that low reps are less boring. It's really an argument that I've heard. If you are getting bored at any point during a set, you are fucking up on a monumental level. You really are. And I'm not going to say you're beyond saving, although that is tempting, but you should not be getting bored during a set, okay? Maybe chill with the social media and the TikTok scrolling for a few weeks if you feel that way. Another argument is that it is easier mentally to get to failure with lower reps. And I agree with this. You're not going to get that burning sensation, those waste products accumulating in your muscles that do make it mentally more difficult to go to failure, especially on big movements for a set of 10, especially 12, 15, 20, 25. However, I don't really feel that because I'm in good shape. So I think that if you're in good shape, perhaps because you've been doing higher reps or you have just a good base of cardio, you probably won't feel that. I won't feel a burning sensation during a set of squats till like 25 or like a 30 rep max. Even a set of 20, for me, it is still the muscle feeling. Now, it is more difficult mentally to go to failure, so I'll give people that. However, once you get used to it, it's not that bad. It is challenging, but I think for a lot of people, maybe that's a good thing. If nothing else, if you do a training block for a certain muscle group or movement pattern for higher reps, and then you go back to more moderate or lower reps, it feels even easier. So there can be a nice synergy here. Next, often tendon adaptations are cited for a reason for using higher loads with lower reps. I don't necessarily disagree, but it's not like you're not going to get these adaptations for more moderate or even higher reps. Furthermore, the reason people often cite for having strong tendons doesn't really make sense. In your daily life, and I think Fazlifts mentioned this, what do you need your tendon strength for? Probably nothing. Now, again, if you're a distance runner and you need really strong patellar tendons because you want them to be springy and supple and bounce you along the track, yeah, I would say sets of 4, 5, 6 are the way to go. But for most people, it shouldn't even really be a consideration. Also often cited is cardio is not the limiting factor for a set of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 reps. Man, if you're doing a set of 10 on bench or 12 on bench or overhead press or a pull-up and cardio is the limiting factor, let alone isolations, you've identified a massive weakness, okay? If that is the case, if you do a set of 10 pull-ups and you're like, oh God, that's really not a good sign, bro. Like, you might have something actually wrong with you. Now, Romanian deadlifts, back squats, front squats, fair enough. A set of 12, sure, that can absolutely get the heart rate up quite a bit, which is actually maybe something some people need. But a lot of strongmen or powerlifters, especially in the off seasons, they do their 10s, they do their 12s, they do their 8s, and these are powerlifters. These are people focused not necessarily exclusively on muscle growth, but people focused on 1 rep maxes. And so if they are even doing it, I think the average person should be fine. And then finally, often calcium ions are brought up, and I don't necessarily disagree. I think mechanistically it's fine. However, if you have outcome-based data comparing sets of 5 and 15 and 20 and 25, and it says that on the whole, 5 to 30, maybe even 35 is the new hypertrophy rep range, which I think supports what is actually done in the real world, the mechanism is secondary to the outcome-based data. And so often when people cite mechanisms, that's cool, that's interesting, but you have something that's more important, the actual result. And so the minute someone opens their mouth and they start spouting about some mechanism when we have the outcome-based data, I just can't take that person seriously. All right, now for the case for higher reps, so 8s, 10s, 12s, 15s, 20s, or even a set of 30, first, often they are easier on the joints. Not always. I've heard a few people who have said, hey, lower reps were easier on the joints for me. But I think on the whole, if someone's like, hey, I'm getting elbow tendonitis, and I'm like, okay, what have you been doing? Often it's either sloppy reps or low reps. And those are two different things that are often conflated. People will say, oh, I got tendonitis from sets of 5. And they'll say, oh, well, you must have been doing them wrong. No, sometimes it's just the weight was too heavy, and moderating that load, especially on isolations, could be the way to go. By the way, this video is sponsored by Boostcamp. So if you want to get the most out of your training, you should be tracking your training, regardless of it's 6 to 8 or 8 to 10 or 10 to 12 or 12 to 15 or 15 to whatever. You should be tracking and trying to make progress over time. And Boostcamp is the best way to do that. Plus, you get access to some of the best training programs out there. If you're not really sure what to do, you're a little bit lost, I know there's a lot of information out there, just hop on a fixed plan, run it, be observant, and get those gains over time. So, thank you to Boostcamp for sponsoring this video. Next, and Basement Bodybuilding talked about this one, you can kind of feel your technique out during the set. So if you're doing a set of lateral raises, let's say you're doing a set of 15, which I think is very reasonable in lateral raises, you can kind of put it right on the side delt from the very start, and then those last reps, maybe you'll compensate very, very slightly, but you're still getting in a lot of quality reps, and you kind of have this pre-fatiguing of the muscle you really want to train, and it's actually going to failure. Whereas a lot of people, if they're doing lateral raises for sets of 5, it's just going to look shit from the beginning. Now, I know a lot of people will say, well, just use good technique. I kind of wonder if these people have actually trained anyone, because in the real world, if you have a whole bunch of people do sets of 5 on lateral raises, you're going to see a whole bunch of garbage. And they might even double down and say, oh no, that means you're a bad coach because you could have coached them to have great technique if you were a great coach. I still don't agree. I think doing everything for sets of 5, you're going to see a whole bunch of shenanigans, a whole bunch of compensating, a whole bunch of bullshit. On some movements, it's great, but on others, using a more moderate weight or even higher reps is probably the way to go in this case. Next, and Basement Bodybuilding also talked about this one, and it's something I've experienced a lot. With more moderate and higher reps, the stabilizers and your ability to brace are less of the limiting factor. And this is part of the reason why when I do RDLs, it's like 10 reps minimum, and I like 15, I like 20, because I've had some alignment issues, some bracing issues, and just that allows me to get in position, keep somewhat locked in, and then just rep out. Whereas if I try to do a set of 5 or 6, the stabilizers and the ability to brace become the limiting factor. And if that is the limiting factor, guess what? You're not training the other muscles that you're attempting to take to failure. And often with more moderate reps, failure is more gradual. So you can kind of feel it approaching, and so you know when to call a set on these bigger movements where the bracing might be the limiting factor. Whereas if you just try to do a set of 5, often it just goes from 0 to 60. Failure approaches out of nowhere, and in some cases that's good if it's a very stable movement, there's no bracing, that kind of stuff. And I think this is why often people who promote lower reps, they use a lot of optimal movements, everything is braced and everything is lined up and stable and locked in, a lot of machines. And I think that's a fine way to train, but you have to realize the context of their training and why they are able to use low reps for all of those movements. That might not necessarily directly translate to a different style of training. Next, mind-muscle connection. Now, I've definitely poo-pooed on mind-muscle connection in the past, but let's say you really have trouble feeling your lats and connecting with them. Is a set of 5 or 6 reps really the way to go? Probably not. I found like sets of 12, sets of 15, really focusing on that area. You get in a whole bunch of really high quality reps where you're feeling the muscle, and then you can kind of feel the other muscles attempting to come into play, and you can focus on trying to shut them out and keeping that tension where you want it. That is really very, very tough to do on a set of 5. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's much more challenging. And if something is a weak point, more moderate reps might be the way to go. Also, less warm-up. So if you're doing higher reps, it's a lighter weight, obviously, so you don't have to take those extra warm-ups. Pretty self-explanatory here. I would say this pretty much cancels out the, oh, but you waste time doing the reps in the beginning of the set. So I would say on the whole, if I'm doing sets of 15 or sets of 5, they're not that different in terms of the amount of time. Also, often progression is just a lot more forgiving when it comes to more moderate reps. Let's say you're saying, okay, 4 to 8 reps, that's all I can do. Over 8 reps, calcium ions, I don't want to do that. It's too fatiguing. Mentally, I just can't. Oh my God, oh no. Let's say you have 15, 20, and 25 pound dumbbells and you're doing lateral raises. Okay, you hit the 15s for 8. Great, you move to the 20s. You might not be able to do that for even 3 reps with the same technique, right? Because 5 pounds is a big jump on a smaller movement. And you could say, oh, use micro-loading, get these little things that strap to the dumbbells. I'm not gonna fucking do that shit. I'll just increase the rep range a little bit, even if it causes slightly more fatigue that I can't even calculate, especially with the repeated bout effect. And so, even if you're doing it on a machine, let's say a machine, you really, really like it, it's maxed out, for some reason you can't use a gym pin, or you don't have a gym pin. I don't have a gym pin, not sponsored by Gym Pin. Hey, Gym Pin, hit me up, ship some shit to China. Just increase the reps. You hit 8 reps, do 10 reps, and then 12 reps, and then 15 reps. You're still gonna grow. You're still gonna grow muscle. Now, Paul Carter has been a bit of a champion of the lower reps. Let me read from an article he wrote about 6 years ago on T Nation. 50 reps for size. So the guy who promotes don't do over 8 reps, just a few years ago was promoting 50 reps for size, not for recovery, not for capillarization, for size. What could be going on here? Is this a grift? I don't know. I would never make that accusation. Years ago, I saw a strongman competitor, Derek Poundstone, doing 100 rep work and asked him why he was doing it. One of his main reasons, mental toughness. So that used to be a positive, and now it's like, oh, the mental fatigue, oh, my central nervous system cortex, it's sensing too much, oh no. A lot has changed in the past half a decade. Let's continue on. Most guys who complain about a lack of progress just don't train hard enough to make any program work. I agree. I think that's very, very common. Next up, metabolic stress. High reps create quite the pump. And bodybuilders have been using the pump for a long term. It's not just a fleeting cosmetic effect, it's a tool for muscle growth. Now, he would probably disagree with this past version, and there's nothing wrong with updating your opinion, but there's nothing also wrong with getting a pump. At least it's telling you what muscles are working, and some people enjoy it. Some people really enjoy it. What's up, Arnold? Then he talks about EPOC, so you're burning calories after the workout. This has kind of been proven to be a tiny little effect. He's also probably updated his opinion on there. Again, it's fine. Joint pain relief. While this may not be scientifically proven, over the last several years, I've had tremendous amount of people express to me how very high rep empty barbell curls alleviated their constant and nagging elbow pain when everything else they tried had failed. So, and now he's saying, okay, only do low reps. Low reps are the best for joints as well. It's okay to update your opinion, but at a certain point, you kind of have to wonder why. Why this much? Why'd you go from sets of 50 and 100 to never do more than 8 reps? And I think this is because dogmatism sells. You have a message, there's a hypertrophy concept, whether it's the range of motion, oh, only use this part of the range of motion, whether it's volume, whether it's frequency, whether it's effort, whether it's anything else that goes into your training. And it becomes dogmatic because being dogmatic makes you money. You make more money by being dogmatic. You are incentivized to be dogmatic. And we got away from the exercise fearmongering, the athlete acts, never do behind the neck press, never do upright rows, no, don't round it back in the deadlift. And now we are fatigue fearmongering. That's the new fearmongering. There's always got to be something in the industry where pieces of shit can say, oh, just be careful, like don't overdo it, don't work too hard, oh, calcium ions. There's going to be something next. In a year or two, we're going to be over this, and there's going to be something else. I don't know what it's going to be. And it's like fucking squashing bugs. It's like this nest of grotesqueness that is never ending. So there's something called the Fosbury flop. So it's in the high jump. Everyone had been jumping over the bar the front way, right? Because they just, okay, well, there's a bar. Let's try to jump over this bitch. Fosbury was like, all right, what happens if I do this? If I flop over the bar? And he was really good at it. And people started imitating him. And now it's the only way that people do the high jump. No one goes over the front. Everyone hits the back door up. And so sometimes there are breakthroughs in sport where one person discovers something and then it changes everything. That is not what is happening here. You think that the silver era lifters, who often did 8, 10, 12 reps, that was kind of their bread and butter for the most part, you think they just didn't have a clue and they never even considered 4 to 6 reps? Like, no one was like, okay, let's do less reps with a little bit more weight. You think they didn't fucking try that? And some did, right? You look at Reg Park, he loved 5x5, but Steve Reeves, he's more of an 8 to 12 guy. Find your rep range. Stop trying to find people on the internet to tell you what to do. You have to go into the gym, try a whole bunch of stuff, and find out what works through observation and trial and error. Stop looking for gurus. And the fact is, many really jacked guys, both natural and enhanced, never went below 8 reps. They kept everything 8 and up reps. And so the idea that this causes excessive fatigue, or it's suboptimal, or it's mentally challenging.
Sounds like you have mental problems, man.
Yeah, you got mental problems, man.
Yeah, it really does.
It's just wrong. It's just wrong. There's nothing wrong with a set of 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8. I do a lot of stuff in that rep range, but the idea that if you use a little bit less weight and the reps go up a little bit, it's going to be suboptimal is just insanely asinine. And the reality is often these people are targeting beginners, and I think this is good for beginners. I think having beginners do mostly low-ish moderate reps is the way to go because they're using less weight, maybe they're not as cardiovascularly savvy, and they will do really well on the system, especially with a lower volume approach, because they need to learn to train hard, and training hard with low-ish reps is just easier than with high reps. However, at a certain point, it's going to stop working for some people. For some people, they can just do that for their whole career. But for other people, on some movements, they're going to want to use more moderate or even higher rep ranges, and there's a lot of value there, okay? For beginners, don't restrict your tool bag, that sounds uncomfortable, too much. You can restrict it in the beginning, right? Restrict that in the beginning. That's actually good to prevent them from overthinking things. Why do you think 5x5 is that simple, right? But later, you might want to expand your tool bag. Fuck. And I've seen this a number of times where there was a big content creator who promoted low reps, and someone said, hey, I actually like high reps, or I actually got better results with more moderate or higher reps. And they're like, no, you didn't. No. I mean, the amount of gaslighting on this has been absolutely insufferable. It's been infuriating, where you see someone say, hey, actually, this is my experience. And the response is not, okay, cool, that works for you. No, the response is, no, you're wrong about your experience. It's fucking insane. Enjoy your sets of 5 on neck curls. There are some movements that it's just not as appropriate for. So I would say in general, if something is less stable, if something is more isolationist, then it's probably more suitable for moderate reps. If something is more of a compound movement, if it's more stable, yeah, lower reps, more moderate reps, low to moderate, 6 to 8 is a pretty good rep range. For me, I would say 8 reps is interesting. 8, 10-ish reps, that's kind of like the dividing line, right? Where 8 to 10 reps, it's going to work on pretty much anything. You can do it for squats, maybe do it for laterals, on machines, on calisthenics. 8 to 10 to 12 reps, that works. Like, it's not going to be cardio. It's not going to be too high or too low on anything. 8 to 12. Oh, we're back at the hypertrophy rep range that we had from the bros many years ago. And so some stuff, you could do your 15s, your 20s. That's fine. Other stuff, you could do your 6s, your 5s, maybe even your 4s. But I think 8 to 12 is still just a really good general rule of thumb. And if you want to skew that a little bit down to 6 to 8, I think that's totally fine as well. But just don't be dogmatic about it. It's just one option of many. Hypertrophy is a very forgiving adaptation, and there are many different roads that can get you to a very similar destination. Let's take a look at Brian DaCosta's recent glute. This was not actually very recent. It was October 15th. I think it was a pinned post. My bad. Hip adduction, 3 sets, 15 to 20. Hip abduction, 3 sets, 15 to 20. Oh my God, he's already so much volume and so many reps. How will he ever recover from those calcium ions? Seated leg curl, 3 sets, 15 to 20. Calf press, 3 sets, 15 to 20. Barbell Romanian deadlift, 3 sets, 8 to 12. Makes sense, given it's a bigger movement and his technique is very on point. Looks like his bracing is good. Hip thrust machine, 3 sets, 8 to 12. Again, a bigger movement, compound. Smith splits squat, 3 sets, 8 to 12. Seated leg curl, 3 sets, 15 to 20. Calf press, 3 sets, 15 to 20. Okay, so it's a lot of volume. It's a lot of more moderate to higher reps. Not a single thing under 8 reps. And he's doing fine. He's doing all right. He's not bad, you know? Ronnie, he's famous for doing his 800 for 2 deadlifts and squats. That didn't seem to be something he did all the time. That was kind of like hey, I'm on video, or I'm the strongest I've ever been. Let's see what I can do, okay? But most of his stuff seemed to be 8 to 12. Jay, 8 to 12. Lee Haney, some stuff 8 to 6-ish, other stuff 15 to 20. I don't know any bodybuilders who do exclusively 5 to 6 reps only. It's just not very common at all. Arnold, and when you see an Arnold quote, like, yeah, keep it with a grain of salt. I make a point of never doing less than 6 repetitions per set with most movements and nothing higher than 12. And I think that's fine. I don't think you have to do higher reps to get big, but I also don't think you have to do low reps to get big either. Here's David K, natural bodybuilder, one of the best of all time, doing 220 kilos, just shy of 500 pounds, for 20 reps. Oh, calcium ions, fatigue. It worked for him, okay? And this is where you get some fucking nerd in the comments saying, oh, you should have only done 5 reps because of the fatigue. You think he hasn't tried that or done that before? He's found that a higher rep approach has worked, clearly, for him. Doug Miller, 405 pounds, I know I'm mixing units here, 4 plates, for 32 reps in the deadlift. Is this guy an idiot, or does he know what he's doing? The pencil necks are really out in force here, using their mechanism and their theories against the people who are actually getting big in practice. Now, some of you might not think he's natural. I'll have a whole video on that in the works. Anyway, if you want to know more about proper programming practices and how to get the most out of your time and energy and effort in the gym, check out my books. They will steer you right. I'll put a whole bunch of reviews up on the screen. They have been very, very positively reviewed, to say the least, and they will help a ton. So thank you so much for the support, and thank you so much, more importantly, for supporting your own gains, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.